You are listening to the New American Media.
Live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. It is a very happy Friday indeed. I know somebody's celebrating a birthday, methinks. And it might just be me. So I suppose for my birthday, we're celebrating the Cleveland Indians. Doing very well right now. Thankfully. Jeez. It's been so tedious with the Buckeyes on probation and the Browns being lousy and the Cavs being lousy. It's nice that the Indians are competing again. So happy birthday on that. Welcome to the Unhappy Hour. My name's Brian Engelman. I'm going to be your host. Thanks for listening to the TNAM radio network here at thenewamericanmedia.com. Please do us a favor. Follow us on Twitter at American_media_. Like our Facebook page. Search The New American Media. Subscribe to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia and check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. We're going to have a couple of guests in today. I believe we're going to be talking with Ben Weinbrower. He's a Clevelander, transplanted. He's over in Chicago, and he does a radio show on existential. I jump on his show, and he jumps on our show from time to time. So we're probably going to talk some Cleveland Indians with him. But first, before we get into all of that jazz, and I hope you stick around for it, and that's why I say sign up, follow us, because we'll split the shows up into different little pieces. You just want to hear basketball, you're in the right place. We're going to bring an NBA scout and Cleveland sports fan, Zak Baris. He's a regular during the NBA time. He's our go-to guy, and it's playoff time. Playoffs! I want to talk about playoffs. If you don't know that quote, go on YouTube and type in playoffs. Oh, man, we used to play that quote hundreds of times back when Sean was engineering the show. I couldn't get enough of it. Just kept cracking up. Anyway, but yes, during NBA playoff season, we talk with Zak Baris, and I think, let's just go for it. I know Zach has a lot going on today. So do we, so we're going to be moving real fast. We'll bring him in, get the rundown of what's going on in the NBA.
Hello.
Zach, you're live on the air. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great today.
Yeah, well, it's a interesting day for sports. It's a lot of NBA action. And since I know you have limited time, and actually so do we, let's bounce right to it. Where do we want to start? What do we want to talk about? Because I saw some really incredible double overtime basketball out of the Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. I don't know where you want to start, but for me, that blew me away. It was some really great basketball.
I mean, that was fantastic basketball the other night. I was really surprised that Golden State blew that lead, and then, and San Antonio was able to come back. It was a fantastic game, though. And I thought when Golden State lost that game, I said they're going to have a tough time, coming back in the series, and they go and they win game two.
They bounce back really, crazy. Yeah.
I mean, for a team to be able to come back from that, after such a basically deflating loss, it basically took the air out of them and everything, and they come back in game two. Klay Thompson plays an excellent game. That was exactly what you wanted to see out of a team like that. And they did. They played their best basketball, and now they're in control of the series again, especially after that horrible game one loss, after, you blow an 18-point lead.
Well, you know what? We're at a unique point. I think this is, I don't know the exact stat, but all four series are tied 1-1, and that's pretty unusual, where nobody's really pulled ahead in this. Does it speak to the parity of it, or what do you make of every?
I think it's some of it does. I mean, it has to. I mean, if all the series, it doesn't mean all the series can't wind up ending in 5 games at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We've seen stuff like this before, but I tend to think most of these series, especially with Golden State and San Antonio, I think you'll see that one go to. I tend to think you'll see it go to 7, depending on what happens in Golden State, though. But I think Golden State should be able to take the next 2. I think they're the most exciting team left in the Western Conference, to say the least.
Well, with Oklahoma City, let's bounce to that one real quick. With the Thunder, that injury to Westbrook, that's just brutal. And
they reminded me now of they were comparing the other day. Someone was doing a comparison of them to the 2007 Cavaliers, and I'm looking at their roster and I'm like, wow, It's an exact replica of the roster, basically. Obviously some things are changed, but the talent level is very, very similar. I mean, Presti really, obviously he didn't anticipate losing Westbrook, who's never missed a game in his career, the injury. But, it's like that Harden trade just looks worse and worse by the minute.
Okay.
And I know I keep bringing this up, but, I mean, wow, it looks terrible now because, if this team still had James Harden over Kevin Martin and, basically your 3-point specialist, if you want to even call him that, and Jeremy Lamb, I can tell you right now, they would not have been on the verge of losing to Houston in the first round, and they wouldn't be having their backs toward the wall against Memphis right now. I think they would pretty much have control of that series with James Harden, but obviously Presti made the trade, and he's got to sit there, dug his own grave, and now he's got to lie in it.
Well, you know what? You talk about trades, think of that series specifically, because Memphis pulled off a big trade, and people thought it was a salary dump and they were throwing in the towel, but turns out,
Well, I mean, it turned out it went from being Rudy Gay's team. They're a lot more efficient without Rudy Gay. I still don't love that they traded him, because they didn't get a lot for him. And I'm really not a Tayshaun Prince fan. I think he's incredibly inefficient. But I mean, that's just me. I would have personally, I don't think it's a horrible thing they traded Gay. I just don't like Tayshaun Prince. I don't think Tayshaun Prince has really been good now for about 5 years.
How many years is he in the league now? How long is he's been?
He's been in the league. Well, I mean, he was one of the guys. He's one of the anchors on the 06 Pistons. I mean, in the 05 Pistons team that won it.
Yeah. He's old school. Well,
or was it even 04 they won it and then they lost 05? That was 04. So, he was one of the guys on that team. So, he's been, he just isn't, he tends to take a lot of really bad shots. And that's Prince's problem. And he doesn't set up Memphis well, which is the problem. He takes a lot of really deep 2-point shots, which you just can't take. It's almost like he's attempting to take a three. Defender comes in, pushes him basically, and he winds up being forced to take these, 18, 19-foot jump shots, and he misses every single one of them. I was joking the other day. I was like, I can't remember the time I saw Tayshaun Prince make a jump shot. I really can't.
Well, you remember how LeBron used to shoot all of those long-range shots, just like maybe first 2, maybe 3 years in the league. He just wanted to conquer everything, and it just wasn't his strong suit, and he just throwing up bricks like crazy from long range until he figured out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but I really do like Memphis. I mean, this went from being Rudy Gay's team to basically being Mike Conley's, and Conley's established his presence there, as the team leader now in Memphis, which I think has been big. Mike Conley's really established himself. And I really like what Memphis has done. I tend to think they'll probably be the team coming out of the West, or it could be Golden State, or, even San Antonio. But I tend to think it'll be Memphis or Golden State.
Jesse, you think OKC's overmatched?
I just think it's going to happen next year. I just don't know if they can contain the scoring of Golden State in the next round, or even San Antonio for that matter.
Man, that double overtime game, that three-pointer, I can't believe they got crossed up on that three-pointer to throw the cross-court pass to Ginobili. And that's the thing, though, and they were saying that the coach, that Popovich was upset with that shot. I'm like, come on, you have like 2 seconds left. You're going to fumble another pass. Shoot the ball. You're open. You're a long-range shooter. Shoot it. That was a great play.
Mike Fratello was talking about how that happened to them in Cleveland against the Spurs back in the 90s, and I remember just thinking that. I was like, I can't remember how many times that happened to the Cavaliers teams like that. But Popovich, Popovich is basically like he's the equivalent to Bill Belichick in the NBA. He really is. I mean, plus on these teams every single year, no matter what kind of talent he acquires, they suddenly fit the piece. It's suddenly just an extra piece to the puzzle. Look at a guy like Danny Green that wasn't good enough to be on the 17-win Cavaliers, yet he's starting for a 60-win team in the San Antonio Spurs.
Go figure.
It's not because Danny Green's a fantastic player. Danny Green fits his system well. Danny Green still wouldn't be doing a ton on the Cavaliers. Just remember that. So anybody who makes a point and goes, oh my God, they gave up Danny Green, it wasn't the worst move in the world.
Talking with NBA scout Zak Baris. By the way, if you're not following him on Twitter, do so. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. And I know that you're paying attention to most of these games and sending out very interesting tweets during the course of it, so definitely stay in touch with Zak over there. Popovich, I don't remember when Popovich was caught recording the other team to learn their plays so he could cheat, though. You're making the Belichick analogy there. I'm trying to follow you.
Okay,
But I'm
fine.
missing
I'll make
the
it the
cheating.
Bill Parcells analogy then. We'll change it then.
Somebody named Bill, like Bill Clinton. No, it's like
Yeah, and then you have, it's just, I mean, like, honestly, it's, this has been a great playoff so far. I'll just put it that way. But, Popovich isn't a cheater, but, Popovich is also, you have to give him a lot of credit because Popovich for a while was the GM of the Spurs, and he did construct a lot of that roster. He's the guy who drafted, I believe he drafted Parker and Manu. He was the GM for a while in San Antonio, which a lot of people don't know.
Well, I mean, how long have the Spurs been good now? What, 20 years since David Robinson?
They had that one bad season when Robinson was injured. They hit the jackpot. That was the year that Boston was supposed to, that's why Pitino even said he took the Celtics job because he thought he was going to get Tim Duncan, and the Spurs happened to win the lottery, and, suddenly they were back.
Go figure. It's funny how things work out, the ripple effects of every decision that's made.
Look at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts had in football, the Colts had a bunch of great years of Peyton Manning. They were in the playoffs almost every single season. I think they missed the playoffs once or twice with Peyton Manning as the quarterback after 1998. And obviously the 98 season they didn't make it. But after that, I believe they only missed it one time. And they had a 6-10 season. But, and then they go have, Peyton Manning's out for the year. They land the number 1 overall pick. They get Andrew Luck. So, go figure there. It's a team with a long string of success. They have one bad season, and they're back in the playoffs a year later, and they'll probably be back there every year, for the next 10 years. But that's what happens. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. In other words, and other times it's like something in the NBA draft. The Cavs landed the prize in 2003 when they drafted LeBron James, and they landed a prize in Kyrie Irving. They landed a stud a couple of years ago when, they drafted Irving. They got one of the league's best point guards.
Well, if you think, if you think back to the Colts, though, I just watched one of those 30 for 30 special. I think that's what it was. I don't know, some documentary on ESPN, and they were talking about the John Elway draft. Where the Colts took him, and he didn't want to go play for the Colts, and then they had to release him. They traded him. He ended up going to Denver, and that's once again the ripple effect of personnel decisions. And that's what you do on a daily basis, working with scouting, trying to figure out. Who's the Danny Green, who's the Peyton Manning or the.
Well, yeah, it's not just determining a player's talent. It's determining a player's talents that fit your system. Because I've looked at guys in the past. I go, wow, I love this guy, and then I say I'm looking at him from a system-based need and a team fit, and I just go, okay, well he doesn't fit here. It's like Rudy Gay when he went to Toronto. What does Toronto lack so far? Toronto doesn't have a small forward. He was a perfect fit in Toronto. He makes a much bigger difference to Toronto's roster than he made to Memphis's roster. And it's showing right now. It's showing that Memphis is still a good team without him. Are they a great team? No, but they're a very good team. With or without him, they're a good team. And, Toronto improved. Toronto had an end-of-the-year mark where I believe they finished up, with Rudy Gay. I believe they were like 8 or 9, maybe even 10 games above 500 when Gay was in the lineup. They were a much better team with Rudy Gay. He fit their system perfectly. So, a lot of times you just have to look at system-based needs too, and especially with a team like Miami, you're drafting for the most talented player available because their roster's kind of just constructed of 3 really talented guys and a bunch of fits around them. They have their 3-point shooters, they have their defensive stoppers, you have everything. Or a team like Chicago, you're looking for a guy that can play defense, or you're looking for a scoring option. So it's a lot harder to determine. In certain systems, what you're looking for. Sometimes, a lot of teams at the top of the lottery, are going based solely on pure talent at that point, not system-based needs, because you're going for the most talented player, because if a team's that bad, obviously, for the most part, you don't have a core player to build around.
And the whole point of their draft is to grab a core player to completely gut their roster, or at least tweak it to make it work based around that great player.
Exactly. And that's, I'm fortunate enough where I don't have to, I don't know, but the team I work for doesn't happen to be a bad team, so we're going to be, we're not going to be drafting that high. So, it's sometimes a blessing in disguise because, sometimes your job will, depend on it. You go, okay, well, are we going to take Nerlens Noel or are we going to take Ben McLemore? Which is the franchise-changing player here?
Man, you were bringing up a great point. Go ahead, sorry.
And if you look at it a couple of years ago, there was debate when people were going, oh, the Cavaliers are foolish for taking Kyrie Irving and Tristan Thompson instead of taking Derek Williams and Kemba Walker. or Brandon Knight, but the thing is you always have to take at the top of the board. It wouldn't even matter if they would have come out of that draft with Kyrie and Kemba. You have to take the most talented players on your board when you're drafting that high. It doesn't matter. You don't want to do the David Kahn thing and take 6 point guards in one draft. That's something you don't want to do. But at the same time, you have to draft just on best pure talent.
You make a good point, though, Zach.
When they selected Irving, I couldn't imagine. They're a bad team with Irving and Thompson. I couldn't imagine where they would be with Derek Williams and Kemba Walker, Derek Williams and Brandon Knight. I really don't even want to.
Yeah, you can. You can think of Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think of the teams that always draft poorly.
Yeah, and it's what happens. Do I think there's a game changer in this year's NBA draft? No. But, there could be, Nerlens Noel, if he's healthy, could wind up being a great defensive center in the NBA, and his game could develop, especially depends who he plays around. If he has a good point guard, he has a couple guys that can help facilitate the offense around him, he should be a really good player in this league.
And is he going to be playing? Is he going to be playing next year, or are they going to redshirt him? What I'm saying.
I tend to think he'll play, but, I've been wrong other times on injuries. It all depends on when the body, and when someone's body is able to, when they feel they're ready and they're able to function. And if he feels he's not ready next year, especially a bad team's not going to force him to play, but he's not going to add 15 to 20 wins next year to a ball club, any team he plays for.
Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing Kyrie launching some alley-oops over that way when we win the lottery. I think that'd be pretty cool.
It'd be great for the Cavs to win the lottery. It gives them, so then they don't really have to think about drafting, because if they're in the 2 to 3 range, do they draft Otto Porter? Do they even think about Ben McLemore? That's the thing with the Cavaliers. It's going to be a lot harder to determine who they're going to get. It's certain spots. It's going to be, they have a lot relying on it. Do they draft another shooting guard and potentially, upset Deion Waiters or move Deion to a 6-man? That's where the issue lies right now. So you want to be in a point where you don't have to even worry about it.
We're talking with NBA scout Zak Baris. Zach, let's talk about the Eastern Conference real quick. Pacers, Knicks. What's going on there? Once again, another series tied 1-1.
I tend to think the Knicks will win it, but, again, it's one of those series that could go either way. I tend to think the Knicks will win it in 6. I think they just match up well against the Pacers. I don't think the Pacers have enough offense to be able to compete, and it showed last year in the playoffs against Miami. Indiana had that series. They were in control of that series, complete control. And you look at a lot of offensive inefficiency basically by the Pacers when they started taking – their offensive sets were bad, and they started taking a lot of really bad three-pointers when you don't have, a lot of low percentage shots, when you don't have a lot of good three-point shooters to begin with. So, and it cost them the series. They were up 2-1 and basically in control with Dwayne Wade not being healthy, Bosh not being healthy, and LeBron playing up to his best ability, but, there was only so much they can do. And, it cost Indiana the series just because of their inefficiency on the offensive end. And, that's what you have to worry about, though, and that's why I think the Knicks will take this series. I've been wrong in the past. I was right with every series in the first round other than the Golden State-Denver series.
Yeah, I was wrong on that, too. I think a lot of people didn't see that one coming.
Oh, and I think I originally had the Clippers in 7 taking that series, but I said that one could go either way with them in Memphis. But I said that would go to 7 games, and it went to 6, and Memphis beat them. So,
man, I just wonder if Chris Paul is going to be back on the Clippers. I wonder if Dwight's going to be back on the Lakers.
I think he will, but like I said, stranger things have happened in the past. I think it all depends on Donald Sterling. Basically on his willingness to go out and spend for a new coach. I think a lot depends on that.
Well, Phil's still out there. Phil hasn't picked a job yet, so we'll see. But hey,
I don't think Phil's going to the Clippers. I just don't think it'll happen.
Could you imagine, playing for a rival team in the big market city? I mean, could you imagine he would be front and center and he'd get to be a little, not vindictive, but he'd get to kind of thumb his, just kind of.
I don't think he would do that to Jeannie Buss, and Donald Sterling doesn't like him for his comments on the Clippers a few years ago.
All right, fair enough.
So I just don't see it happening. I think a more realistic approach would be getting someone on the lines of maybe Byron Scott. I mean, Chris Paul, if he stays, will handpick his coach. If he stays.
It's a big if. But, hey, let's jump to this one real quick because I know you got to run and we got to come in. We're going to bring Ben Weinbrower from Existential Radio. We're going to talk some Cleveland Indians. Man, the Indians have been nice to watch. But, hey, I want to get to this one real quick. Miami versus Chicago. This is a really interesting game. It was great. Obviously, for anyone who's listened to the Unhappy Hour for any part of the past 2 years, there's no surprise. I'm a Cleveland sports fan, and I root against LeBron James at every opportunity. I've lost a little bit of the hate for the Heat, but I still root against LeBron James and whoever he happens to play for.
I was at Game 1 the other night in Miami, and I have to say, I was on the concourse, and, nothing bothers me more than Miami Heat fans. I had to deal with this. I was at the last Miami home loss in January down in Miami. And, I took my sister to the Bulls Heat game. It was her 21st birthday. We were at the game, and I remember just dealing with these Heat fans, and I was like, okay, well, this shouldn't be as bad. I'm up on the concourse getting food the other night during the game, and, a Heat fan screams in my face, and I was just like, really? I have to listen to this. I got to deal with this all night. I was like, this is just great. And I honestly, I can't. It makes me. I cannot stand Miami Heat fans. There's no other NBA fan I hate more than a Miami Heat fan.
That's saying
something. I used
something.
to say that about the Pistons, but actually, when I lived in Cleveland back in the day, and I remember going to Cavs Pistons playoff games, I always said I hated the Pistons more than any other team. And because of I couldn't stand their fans, but Miami Heat fans definitely trump that. Laker fans aren't bad. Clipper fans aren't bad. I have to say, though, the worst NBA fans I've dealt with are Miami Heat fans.
Well, and for the listeners that aren't aware, it was pretty funny. I start texting Zach. I'm watching the game, and it's coming down to the wire, and it looks like Chicago's, very close. It's neck and neck, and then they start pulling away, right at the last second. And I told Zach, he's like, yeah, I'm 10th row or something like that. And I said, all right, you need to yell, "Hey, Brian." I said, I'm sure I could hear you from TV. The place is silent. It is just, you could hear a pin drop. It was dead in there. It was almost like being inside of a bank vault. It was quiet.
I have to say, though, I'm glad I wasn't at Game 2, though. I heard the stories the other night. I'm just glad I wasn't there for Game 2.
What was that, a 30-point blowout, 40-point blowout, 55-point blowout? What was the final score?
I don't even – luckily, I was watching the game, and I was back in L.A. for the game. I had a meeting back in L.A., so obviously I couldn't stay for Game 2. But, so I started watching the Indians game on the TV right next to it. And luckily, the game was on. I was at a bar, and the game happened to be on right next to it. So it worked out for me. But the second half was brutal, and it was something I was just expecting because we were playing with such a they were playing with such a thin roster, and I knew, it was just bound to happen. It was, because they left everything on the court in Game 1. All these guys are playing 48 minutes, and suddenly, it was at the point where they're just like, how much longer can these guys go? I questioned it too. You could see it in the first half. They were starting to get tired at the end of the second quarter. And the third quarter, they just collapsed. And, Miami turned it on. Like I said, you're not going to beat Miami. No team in the NBA is going to beat Miami when especially when Wade and LeBron are on their A games. It's just not going to happen. Especially with any roster. When those two are playing top-notch basketball, it's hard to lose. It's hard for them to lose.
Well, when we were talking about the Clippers for a second earlier, and that is in my backyard out here in Los Angeles. I said lost. But I got the impression watching Blake Griffin that team was tired. They were fighting, they were trying, but they were just spent. There was not much fuel left in the tank, and that's kind of what you were saying. Speaking of having fuel left in the tank, everybody's starting to ask: is Derrick Rose going to ever put his shoes on? Is he going to get on the court? People are saying he's been cleared by the doctors.
Eventually, I don't. Like I said, I can't comment too much about that right now. But you're definitely not going to see him tonight. I'll tell you that. I saw him earlier today. You're not going to see him on the court tonight. I will tell you that right now. I'm actually at the United Center right now, and I can tell you will not see him on the floor tonight.
Yeah, and it's nice to see at least the teammates are, seeing some comments supporting him. He has been there. He's practicing.
He's been dominating in practice. I can say that. He definitely looks like, he's at least, a top-tier NBA player from what I can see in practice. But, if he doesn't feel comfortable and coming into such a physical series, I don't know if it's the brightest idea. And obviously I believe he feels the same way. When you walk into such, a brutal playoff series where it's going to take more than just being, it's not like he can just ease back on the court and play 12 to 14 minutes a night. It's just, that's not his style. That's not how he wants to go. And you can't just jump in there if you're not playing for an entire season. So you're going and playing 40 minutes a night. It's very tough to do that. But, it's not to rule him out for the rest of the playoffs. It's just most likely you won't see him in the series unless something changes.
Now, I can say I had an ACL. I blew out an ACL playing basketball. And it really does take a while. Now, I didn't, rehab professionally, and I didn't have access to the world's best trainers and all that stuff. I did have some good people helping. But, as you start to get your legs back, even walking, just light jogging, trying to actually be like you used to be, it's hard. It is really hard. And I had a shoulder injury, like a labrum tear. I'm falling apart, Zach. But, so I understood what Dwight Howard was going through. These are not normal, like an ankle sprain. You can't walk on it, then it's tender, and then you just got to go. I mean, when you lose your wheels, when you lose your knee and your shoulder, I mean, it takes a while to come back. You're not right for a while. But I think the big thing here was that the doctors cleared him, and people were like, get on the court, and he's not comfortable yet. And I can appreciate and understand that because it took me a while. Everyone's time frame is different. How quickly can you compete at 100% so you don't hurt yourself again,
The fact is, I believe if this were still mid-season, I think you would see Derek suit up tonight. It's the fact that this is a tough round of the playoffs. You're going against, arguably the toughest opponent in the NBA. It's not going to be an easy feat no matter what. I can't even say if the Bulls had a healthy Derrick Rose. This would definitely be the most entertaining series in the playoffs. I definitely think it would go 7 games.
It's pretty entertaining
but
now,
I can't say it'd be a guaranteed win, where if the team like the Bulls were facing, I can guarantee if there was a healthy Rose and the Bulls had a healthy roster against the Nets, they would have beaten them in 4. I can personally guarantee that in myself, maybe 5. But that would have been a guaranteed series win if you have a healthy Rose. Instead it went to 7 games, and the Bulls were able to take it in 7. Nobody thought they'd be able to, even though they still dominated during the regular season. That series, I believe they won it 3-1. And it's just one of those things you have to look at and say, okay, Derek makes the team this much better, but right now, it's still Luol Deng's not playing. Luol Deng isn't playing right now, and that's the problem. You have a lot of guys out.
Yeah, they could really use some of that offense from Derrick Rose, but it's a physical series. That's how the Bulls beat the Heat to break that streak before. It was being physical. It really just kind of gooed up the machines. The gears got clogged with a bunch of defense and a bunch of really aggressive Pistons style, old school Pistons, bang into the players. You don't need to throw forearm shivers to knock people out or break noses, but you can play some strong, hard defense. It's the playoffs. Why not?
I have to give credit. I have to give a lot of credit. A lot of credit goes to Jimmy Butler in the series. You have to give him a bunch. He played 3 straight games at 48 minutes apiece. He went in there, and really checked LeBron, put him in, really checked him hard in game 1, and, it helped contribute a win to the series. And, for a guy to do that, to be having to play 48 minutes in such crucial games, 3 games in a row, that really helped the Bulls, especially because, it's not like you're just playing 40 minutes. You're guarding LeBron for 40 of those minutes in that game. And that's the toughest part about it.
Well, all the games are tied 1-1, so I think it's going to start shaking its way out, obviously, in the next couple of days. And, maybe we can meet up again next Friday. I know you got a bunch of stuff to go do. You're at the game now, so.
NBA Combine's next Friday, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you. I did take that note down because. So who's going to be at the Combine? Everybody? Half of them? Most of them?
Well, see, the NBA Combine is different than the NFL Combine. What it is, it's based on a vote of league executives from players they want to see. So all the votes are tallied, and they basically take the top 60, top 65 guys for the Combine. So you don't see, there aren't 300 people participating at the NBA Combine. There's about 60 players, maybe a little more, maybe a few less, just depending. But they take usually the top 60 guys in the draft that teams say, and a lot of the Europeans don't complete. So it's basically 60 North American players for the most part, and maybe 4 or 5 Europeans. But usually there's 15 to 20 Europeans drafted every draft because, they're all the late second-round picks.
Gotcha.
And this one, so you'll have about 60 guys competing in this, plus or minus a few. And it's basically, it's on a league, it's on an league executive's vote. So, let's say I wanted to see a player in the second round who, might be a borderline second-round pick that not a lot of other teams want to see. So we'll place a heavy vote on that one, and we'll make sure he gets invited to the Combine so we can watch him play.
So one team can kind of trump, like you get a chance to wait.
Yeah, you put your vote basically on, on the players you want to see, and then it's taken in a vote from there, and, that's how they go about it.
But it's not like every team gets one vote regardless.
No. You get more votes. You vote on basically the players you want to see. So let's say Nerlens Noel gets 60 votes from, 30 votes from 30 teams. He's a guaranteed to get in. So basically, they take all of the draftable guys. It's done by the NBA Advisory Committee too. They look at it and they said, okay, player X doesn't have a great chance of getting drafted. He's going to drop out of here. No teams, said that they wanted to see him. He's not going to be invited to the Combine. He can do a private workout.
Gotcha.
It's the one team that wants. Let's just say the Orlando Magic are the only team interested in one player. They go, Orlando can work him out individually. That's what we'll do. It's easier for us. It's easier for them. There's no reason to waste 29 other teams in the league who have absolutely no interest in, this player. So that's how it works.
Interesting. And how many of these have you been to?
Last year was my first one.
Okay, so this will be number 2.
This will be my second, yeah.
And you might have some time next week to talk about this then.
Yeah, I did last year. It's held at the University of Illinois Chicago, and, it's 2 days. It's on Thursday and Friday. I believe it will be televised. I think last year it was televised. I'm not sure. Actually, I am sure it was televised because I put it on my DVR to go watch myself last year. So I had it on the DVR. So I looked for myself on TV and found myself about 10 times throughout the 2 days. And this year it will be on TV. I believe it'll probably be on ESPNU would be my guess.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of TV, we're kind of changing how we post some of these shows after the fact. I'm gonna need a good picture of you. You got to send me like a good picture to use because we're gonna start adding the photos to some of the shows. By the way, I scrolled your Twitter feed and I couldn't really find one where you weren't next to somebody or the situation didn't make sense. So should you have the opportunity at the game to snap a shot of yourself, send it over so we'll try to put it up on the YouTube channel and stuff.
I will send in a picture this week.
All right, fantastic. Well, all right, so your predictions then? I mean, we pretty much went through them.
I have to go with Chicago tonight.
Okay.
If I'm going with my game tonight, I have to go with Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with, I think Golden State will take Game 3.
Golden State. Yeah, those Spurs, they're pesky. They're well coached and they're wily. We'll see what happens. Golden State's got a lot of talent. OKC is hobbled, and the Knicks might just have a little bit more than the Pacers. I'm hearing you with that. So we'll just find out. We'll watch the games tonight, have a good time, and then we'll connect next week or on Friday. Hopefully Friday we can make that work. Talk a little bit of what's gone on in the playoffs at that point, and then get into the Combine action. Give a little preview for the NBA draft. When is the off the top of your head? When is the lottery? Do you recall?
Maybe May 21st, May 23rd. I know it's sometime in the next week and a half.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, I know it's the third week of May. It just happens we don't happen to be selecting in the lottery, so
May 21st.
It's not as big of a deal to us, but it is May 23rd.
May 21. Yeah.
Oh, May 21st. Okay, so I was right originally. So that's when you're going to get to see all the mock drafts coming out because the NBA for the most part is pretty easy to predict with some of the higher picks. Unlike this year's NFL draft, some years the NBA isn't that easy to pick. A few years ago it was relatively easy. The Cavaliers tend to screw everything up over the last 2 years. When they picked Tristan Thompson instead of Klay Thompson, I thought they were going to select Klay. Tristan was the guy I had second. I thought they would take. And then last year they went with the curveball basically, and everybody thought they were, they were the curveball with Deion Waiters in the draft rather than Harrison Barnes or more of a proven player. And I think, they caught some people off guard. A lot of people thought it was a smokescreen. So who knows? If the Cavaliers get the number one overall, I tend to think they'll take Nerlens Noel. But, we'll know more in a week and a half exactly about the lottery and where teams are going to be selecting.
Yeah, so who can we bribe to make sure that we get that number one pick? How does that work? I'm just making a joke.
It's too bad. It's too bad for them last year that they won the coin toss with New Orleans basically, and the higher percentages. If they would have lost, they would have been able to select Anthony Davis.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
They missed out on him.
That is really weird how you just said that.
They had the same exact chance, and they had the coin toss. The Cavaliers had higher odds. I believe the numbers would have been switched, and the Cavaliers would have been in, would have been able to draft Anthony Davis. I could only imagine that one with Kyrie Irving. They play 30 games a year together, but, when they're actually on the court, they would look really good.
Awesome. Well, Zach, have a good time tonight. We'll talk in a few, buddy, all right?
All right, thanks a lot.
Take care. By the way, follow Zach on Twitter. He's at Zbaris, Z-B-A-R-I-S. Link up with him. He'll probably be tweeting from the show tonight. What we're doing is we're going to take a quick pause here for a brief station identification here on the TNAM radio network, and we're going to be right back with Ben Weinbrower. We're going to talk some Tribe.
You are listening to the New American Media.